Look who's joined us. Jonathan Aitken used to be in the government himself, a spell in prison, and now he's a prison chaplain at HMP Pentonville. It's good to see you. Thank you for taking the time. What are some of the challenges that prisons face at the moment?
I think everyone knows the prisons are in crisis. Perhaps some people don't know the details of the crisis. Pentonville, for example, is 99.5% full, which means it's bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
We were able to let out 23 prisoners the other day on the government's new scheme. Only trouble was there were about 40 prisoners waiting to come in. And so it's like a sardine tin. Amazingly, prisons are resilient. We've got lots of good officers, and we manage it and contain it. But almost every day there is big trouble, big pressures, and it's very, very difficult to manage this crisis. But nevertheless, we are doing it.
What's life like inside for prisoners?
Well, it's tough, but not impossible. But every so often things erupt, which make life difficult. I was on duty in Pentonville yesterday, and we had a prisoner who sort of went berserk in a nasty way, and he attacked 3 very good women prison officers, one after the other. By chance, I'd witnessed it, and one woman prison officer got punched in the face, another woman prison officer had her finger badly bitten, had to go to hospital, another had her hair pulled, and so on. It was a very nasty, wild scene, a naked man screaming, yelling, punching. The only bit of good news was that the prison responded very, very well. The alarms went off. Within seconds, people were piling in, and it got sorted, and the man was taken down to the SEG unit, and I'm sure he'll be charged. But this is the kind of incident which sounds rather horrific when I probably tell it to you on Sky News. Actually, these kind of things are happening regularly and frequently. And what is the cause of it?
Drugs.
Well, the cause of it, not easy.
Drugs, perhaps?
What?
Drugs, perhaps?
No, I don't think so. It might have been, we don't know.
Yeah.
But much more, it's the sheer pressures of overcrowding and short staffing. And prison life is very, very difficult and has been for some years, but at least I think the new government are trying to do something about it. What they should do about it is some very interesting questions.
What are the answers?
Well, first of all, they've done the right thing to have this early release scheme.
Not everybody agrees with that,
No,
of course.
not everybody does. But they don't work in the prisons. And anyone who does knows that instead of having a powder keg ready to explode, it's much better to ease the pressure, even though there are some problems in allowing people out early. If there was an easier solution, I bet the government would have taken it, but they haven't. There are quite a lot of short-term solutions which might work. For example, we have about 5,000 elderly prisoners over 70. You might put them into secure hostels instead of in prisons, some part of the sentence. There is something called, in America, they have delayed custody. A lot of people who get sentenced by the court don't have to go into jail that day. In America, they report to marshals at a date which suits the administration of the prison. And then there are bigger things. You could have judges, as they do in America, trial judges reviewing sentences. You could ask at a certain point, and often letting lots of people out sooner for good reasons. And then the probation service, which is totally overstaffed, overpressured. Probation officers have dozens and dozens of, but they tend to recall prisoners far too easily for minor breaches, and the probation service needs to get its act together. And I'm afraid we're dealing here with 2 of the most unimaginative bureaucracies in Britain, Minister of Justice and Her Majesty's Probation and Prison Service. And they're not good at thinking out of the box, thinking originally, making new moves. I'm full of praise for the new Prisons Minister, James Timpson, but he's got a tough job on his hands.
Yeah. I remember interviewing you many times as a government minister. Tell me about your road to Damascus.
Well, it was involuntary. I made a mistake, and all the world knows I committed perjury. Only good thing I did was to plead guilty quickly, and I went to prison for a 9-month sentence. And strangely, although it was difficult and tough in all kinds of ways, I did not have a bad prison journey. And one or two things I learned. First of all, not all bad prisoners are bad men. They can be kind, they can be humorous, they can be good neighbors. Secondly, I formed an admiration, which increases by the day, for the prison service and the prison officers who are on the rank and file. I'm not sure the administrators are brilliant, but the rank and file prison officers are much under-regarded and should be much better praised for the day they keep the lid on our combustible prisons day after day, dealing with the kind of incident I've just described to you.
And how did you find God?
Well, I think it's more a question of God finding me, but I wasn't expecting to ever become a priest or prison chaplain. But I did, after leaving prison, I was interested, not sort of totally committed, interested in, if you made bad mistakes, you should perhaps explore spiritual reasons why you made those mistakes. And I chose to go to the one place in Britain which had worse food and more uncomfortable beds than a prison, which was an Anglican theological...
I thought you were going to say the House of Commons then.
No, this is Wycliffe Hall, Oxford. But I didn't move from that to being a chaplain for another 10 years. I didn't... my fellow Wycliffe students, all of whom were going to be clergymen and clergywomen, they also come to join us. And I said, no, I don't think I'm really up for it. I'm not worthy of it. But then gradually the idea got into my mind that maybe being a prison chaplain would be a good idea. And somebody told me a little verse of poetry about somebody who was a prison chaplain. He wrote saying, "Some like to live within the sound of church and chapel bell. I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell." And actually that's what being a prison chaplain, or for that matter, being a prison officer very often is. You're running a rescue shop within a yard of hell. It's tough, but it's challenging and in a strange way rewarding because all kinds of interesting things happen.
You still have an interest in politics?
As a spectator, I don't do anything in politics. I'm actually very happy to be out of politics.
What do you make of what's going on at the moment with the amount of freebies that the Prime Minister's getting?
I'm rather startled by that. I just think it's sort of insensitive. It would have been all right, I think, if he'd declared them and been more open, but I think someone in number 10 needs to listen to the voices on the street. And I think the voices on the street will say, "Oh, what on earth are these freebies for? Why are they so big?" And there are justifications for them. Maybe the Prime Minister should have a clothing allowance, but we haven't got there yet. We need to think again. I mean, I think Mr. Starmer, unlike many ex-Conservatives, I think he's actually doing quite a good job at the moment. And particularly on the prisons, he's made the right move. So I'm not a critic of him. But if you're asking me about freebies and clothes, I think even when Tory sleeves I went into the clothes business.
Of course, he did declare eventually his wife's clothing. He didn't do it straight away, and he always declared his. But I think it's the amount of money that a lot of people are finding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just needs a bit of sensitive rethinking inside number 10.